Welcome back to the Dollar Fight Take channel here on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes you on the Traitors US Season 2. That is right. I'm your host, Chris. I'm back to bring some order to this podcast this week. I heard it was chaotic last week with Mucky taking the helm, but I am back to bring balance to the force, Kahuna. How are you doing?
That's what happens when you leave it in the hands of Mucky. Things are going to go astray. You know what I mean? I tried to keep an adult hand, be the adult in the room. I don't know how well we went.
Yeah. Well, first off, you may have to kill your camera because you're breaking in and out again on the live. So just make sure that you do that. I think it'll probably be better just for the sound. But yeah, I thought we had Kahuna on the podcast to keep Mucky in line, but I've been hearing from a lot of people it was off the rails last week. A lot of Dan slander that happened while I wasn't here, my boy Dan, and I know that a lot of people are going to have a lot of hot takes on that as well. But I still stand my man Dan. I will always stand my man Dan. Chadud watching episode 6-4 Titans versus Rebels. Chadud, I have to catch up on that afterwards, but we're not podcasting about that until Thursday. So that's kind of fallen a little bit down the priority list to try and get this podcast out first. Then we have Lovable Nikki asking, where's Mucky? Mucky, I can authenticate Lovable Nikki. Mucky did indeed not have the shield. And he's been banished off this podcast tonight because he didn't have the shield. No, he'll be back. He just can't make it this week. Sometimes life comes in the way like it did for me last week as well. Lovable Nikki is saying it was off the rails in a good way. And boo Chris. Why boo me? Why boo me, Lovable Nikki? I feel like it's just because I won't leave. Like I'm still a fan of Dan's. One season of things not working out great doesn't mean the guy is not a good player. I mean, he is the GOAT of Big Brother. I don't care what anybody says. Lexa saying, good evening from rainy Los Angeles. Glad I caught you guys live again. Can't wait to talk Traitors. Lexa, welcome back to the live. Love him, like you're saying, Dan, sucked. He did in this moment. I can understand where he was going, but obviously it didn't work out. But also, I do have a hot take on why Dan struggled this season. I don't think it's a hot take, but I think people are looking past this fact when it comes to him. And then Mucky in the live saying, just want to point out that your boy, a legend of BB, got outplayed by a simple guy who gives roses to beautiful girls. He knows how to slam the game because your boy Dan's game is lame. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard to argue with what Peter has been able to do in this season, but I will say this. Dan came in with a reputation, and apparently a lot more happened last week than what we saw on the show. I don't know, Kuna, you probably didn't listen to Dan's podcast this week with Janelle, or last week, I should say.
I've not, no.
Yeah, so Janelle sunk him last week, not Phaedra. She sunk him last week by bringing out a lot of his gameplay in Big Brother, the things that he did. She said he won the game twice, which he only won it once. We heard it a little bit on the round table where Phaedra said you won the game twice, and he's like, almost twice, but I didn't win it twice. Dan came in with a massive target on his back. Like, nobody expected Pete to come in and be a good game player, which he is. We give credit to that. But it's like Tony Vlachos coming into the game to play this game. Like, he would have a massive target on his back playing the game as one of the GOATs to play a game of any season. It's why Bananas, the GOAT of the challenge, went out first, but people keep forgetting the fact that Bananas went out first and he's a GOAT as well. The bigger the player, the harder it is to be in there. So hats off to Parvati, CT, and Sandra, who's still sticking around. But Dan is bona fide seen as the best Big Brother player of all time. That carries a reputation, Kuna, coming into this game. So it was always going to be difficult.
Yeah, admittedly, I can see a reputation like that, and any of the gamers have got that I get working against them so far. But I haven't seen Big Brother. I don't know his reputation aside from what you tell me, which a trusted source, no doubt. But he hasn't been let down because of his reputation in this game. I think it's his gameplay. Like, he's made some pretty bad calls, left some cookie trails along the way, and been pretty obvious in the way he's approached it and kind of put himself out there. And then obviously Janelle burying him with stuff that was probably, like, again, it wasn't his reputation necessarily leading into it. I think he didn't play the game that well from a power position as well,
Oh, 100%. Listen, I'm not going to disagree with the fact that, Parvati had a record coming in as well. And we're seeing her having to deal with the consequences of her own legacy as well this season, as well as Sandra, as well as CT, some of these people. But CT is not necessarily, even though he should be seen as a strategic threat, that's not what people look at when they look at CT. They think that he's this physically strong guy with a good social political game, but not necessarily like a strategic mastermind like Dan is. I think one of Dan's biggest problems was coming into the season, he tried to play the possum game that he did in Big Brother, but Janelle kept calling it out. Even last week, she said, you played the possum in the beginning and then you strike later on in the game. That's how you've gotten to the end twice in Big Brother. And as Dan said, at the end there, he's never had a single vote against him in Big Brother, ever, in 2 seasons, and he got to the end. So it's a reputation and no one can take that away from him. But I do agree, he didn't adapt quickly enough. And you've got to take your hat off to Peter. I was so impressed with Peter Kahuna last week when he set the trap. And finally, I feel like we've got a faithful, after watching so many seasons of Traitors, that's not an absolute idiot and that actually knows how to play this game as a faithful by doing things like setting little traps, testing different theories. You've got to take your hat off to Pete. He's a player. He's a player. And Dan did not see it, where Parvati did see it. And Dan's fully to blame for his downfall because he took control in the Traitor Tower in regards to who he wanted out. He was adamant it had to be Bergie. Why did it have to be Bergie at this moment, Kuna? Because it's still, like, as much as I am still a fan of Dan, I think Dan's an awesome player and also a great person outside of the game. If you follow him outside of the game, he's very gracious in defeat and all of that. This was not the move, and I still don't understand why he was so adamant to go after Bergie at this stage, Kuna.
I'm not sure either, especially considering that there was even the suggestion. Yep. Yeah. The fact that there was even a suggestion of risk there, Parvati said, well, clearly he's lying. And he had to make that decision based on his read that Pete was telling the truth. He believed him. He's all in. Now I can take my shot. And was it worth that risk? Like, if there's even a suggestion there, you don't need to go down that path. There's other options available to you. It's not like his back was completely against the wall here. And in all reality, by not taking a shot at Bergie, it may have cast less suspicion on him. Like, Bergie accused him. Bergie's flat out said it. So he's trying to do the double meta, like the double back thing. Like, well, of course I didn't do it because, Bergie accused me. That would be dumb for me to be the traitor and then take out the person that accused. So he's trying to game it out. But, like, there were other options. You didn't need to do that in that moment.
Yeah. If this was Traitors Australia and we had the same people out there being faithfuls, maybe it would have worked, but not in a cast full of experienced reality TV people who have played their own shows. A lot of them are known as pretty big strategic players in their own right. These people were never going to get fooled by this strategy of Dan's coming into the game. And I was just shocked that he underestimated Pete as much as he did, because in his own season, he was always really good at reading people and knowing when they were lying to him. But he kind of looked at Pete being a bachelor and thought just because he's been on The Bachelor, the show, he must not have a lot going on upstairs. And he underestimated him. And that ultimately became his downfall in this game, because Parvati did say to him, like, you can't underestimate this kid. This is the perfect opportunity for him to lay a trap. Let's go for the safe option. He took the risky option. And breakfast was extremely entertaining to watch, Kahuna, because they all thought Bergie was not going to come back. But, lo and behold, Bergie does make his way into the breakfast. How would you have reacted in that moment, Kuna? Do you think you would have been able to keep your poker face on with Bergie coming in if you thought you just took him out of the game?
I mean, that's a tough one. Like, he's already celebrating the fact that Bergie, like, in his head, his internal monologue is, don't celebrate that Bergie hasn't come in and you're winning here. Like, that's always the thing, right? When you murder someone and they're like, oh, where are they? How did they not come back? Oh my gosh, Burgerlicious, that sort of thing. But he's now got the opposite, where he actually walks into the room and then you have to do a complete 180. That's a hard flip to make. And how do you do that on your face, especially when Pete is specifically looking like they've set a trap? Like, he didn't know that necessarily, or maybe he did at that point. I don't know, but it's a tough thing to do. I was really curious. How do you? Because I think they both, as soon as he walked in the room, to me, all bets are off. The game, like, you should know by that point. If you're Dan, I'm done, and if you're Parvati, I'm done. I need to turn immediately on Dan. Like, I think my reaction in that moment is be like, Pete, like, what the hell does that? What's going on, Pete? Like, like, I don't know. Like, they were like, oh, he's here, but they should know he told us. Therefore, there's a calculation that is, happening here. I need to be able to go, wait, what? Like, and act confused, not like,
yeah, he didn't look confused
this is
enough.
awesome. Like, you need to be like, what is going on? Yeah,
like how CT was. CT was
he was legitimately just trying to be happy.
Like, you. Yeah, CT's like, you told me, but I don't know what the hell's going on. CT had a very genuine reaction to it. And I think it's hard for us. Like, we sit on the sidelines here and we feel like we could have acted this a lot better, but none of us are like Oscar nominated actors ourselves, So how would you react in that moment is difficult to really know until you're in that seat.
Yeah.
And you see that it was a failed assassination attempt at Bergie in the game. You don't know how you're going to react. But in my mind, the meta play, we'll talk about it, I guess, as the podcast unfolds, but it was either to go straight after Pete to say that he set it up and it's suspicious that he kind of knew where things were at, so maybe he's the puppet master behind the whole thing, or you shoot fire at either CT and Parvati, who is the three people, with yourself included, that are potentially has suspicion on you. But apparently Dan wanted to play the game with Parvati. He didn't want to take a shot at her. That's something that he explained in his own show afterwards. He really wanted to go to the end with Parvati, and there was a bit of loyalty between the two of them to a certain degree. I do want to go back to some of the comments here that have come in since we've spoken about this. Lexa says, I watched a bit of Dan's post-game press conference that he did on his YouTube channel, and he seemed so gracious. He said NBC let him talk to his kids and wife every day, and it was a good time. Hats off to Sandra for running the game, the faithfuls, and not getting a single vote yet. I think her reputation is even greater than Dan's since she actually won twice. That is true. Sandra has a massive reputation in the game as well. But I would say Dan, because no one has won twice in Big Brother, Dan and Will are probably seen as the two best players of Big Brother of all time. They're kind of like Sandra and Tony. So he's like the equivalent of that reputation in Big Brother on the other end. But yeah, definitely didn't deal well with it. Lovable Nikki says that is good that the producers let them talk to their families. Lexa says, also let's not forget there's no day 16 in this game, and Sandra has never gone out before day 16. So that means that she may go until the end, because there won't be a day 16. And in recent times, that's been the bogey day for her. Mucky says, does Kahuna trust my sources when it comes to a good game players? Mucky's sources? Is he talking about the voices in his head?
I don't know what sources guide his choices in game players, but his track history would suggest he needs to listen to new ones.
100%. Like, we haven't forgotten about the absolute fail of the Australian Survivor draft last season, where he picked all the players that went prior to the merge, So I don't know if we can trust this sources. Yeah. Charlie says, I got my P's test tomorrow. Do you think I should stay up or go to bed? And everybody is telling him, go to bed. go to bed, And he did come in with some money here. Thank you, Chadut, with the $5. Say, okay, I'm off to bed.
Good luck,
Rest
buddy.
for my PSTs. Have podcast goes well. Thanks, Chadut. We appreciate you. Let's see whatever else people are saying. Dan should have listened to Pav that Peter was lying and murder Peter. Totally agree. Danny, welcome to the podcast as well, says the fact that he told both Parvati and Dan should have been a huge red flag. That is a trap. That it was a trap.
Yeah.
Lexa says, I don't want to see John and Kate go, but if I was Dan, I would have targeted Kate because I think it's too suspicious to take out someone from the Faithfuls or the Faithfuls as Sandra named them. Yeah, what a random move for Kate to be in the game. Like, what did you think of the fact that they brought her back
You didn't like that?
mid-season? No, I think it's random.
Yeah,
like I like Kate, but it's random.
I said last week, I was like, I don't understand. Like, it's not like she was some power player last season. Like, she was annoying and caused drama and tension in the house by throwing challenges and wearing a shit-eating smile, like look on her face, just hating the whole experience. So she was, impactful that way, but not as a game player.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously, it's because they lost. Forgot his name, the boxer guy earlier in the season, so they probably had to make up a number, and they were like Deontay, and they're probably like, okay, who's always available to jump on one of these shows? Kate, cool. Let's give her a call. She'll probably fly out at a moment's notice and jump into the game, and she's probably like, yeah, whatever. I get a second chance. So she becomes the first returnee ever to come back. And she was fun in the first season, but I don't like people joining the game midway or halfway through the game. So probably would have been a good random person to take out. And she didn't have protection in the game either. Like, it wasn't they brought her in and said she can't be banished on the first night. She was a full-blown player since day one.
Yeah, just complete full-blown, yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. It was definitely weird. Lovable Nicky saying, Chris, you don't know my accolades. Yeah. Is that a threat? Like, I don't know. I don't know your accolades. All I know is every time I do one of these podcasts, Lovable Nikki comes for me in my takes. So that's one thing I do know. So I'm not going to be coming for her on the round table like Dan did. I feel like with Phaedra. They lost Bananas and Kate brings drama to the show. That's true. Lexa says, I'm super excited for Kate because I found her so hilarious last season. But if it was Dan, I would have taken her out because no one expects him to do that. Might have some heat off him. Daddy says she has good confessionals. Don't mind having her back. I don't think she will mess up the game. I see her more as a commentator. That is true. Kiwi, welcome. Welcome to the live. So breakfast was interesting. Obviously, after that, they know they're in trouble. So both Dan and Parvati have conversations with Pete. And Pete is sold on this thing. And he's playing this game so hard at this moment. Like, on my notes, I wrote down, Pete's going to get taken out of the game. Like, if he's not turned, like, they're going to take him out because he's just unbendable when he's talking to both Parvati and Dan. And he can't eliminate both of them at the same time. But he doesn't really entertain much of the conversation. And he's pretty much like, I know you're a traitor. I'm not going to work with you at this point, when they both have conversations with him prior to the mission. What did you think of that gameplay?
As smart as it was for him to definitely should be getting his flowers for setting the trap, and the way he came up with it in real time during the challenge to say, we'll just say that we've got the shield when we don't. Like, that was very snap judgment thinking, very smart. But then to play it too much to the point where, like, he's even said, like, I'm essentially sacrificing myself here because I'm so, like, I've got them so much, like, I'm dead. Like, they're going to kill me. They have to kill me. He's played it too hard. Like, he could have set the trap, been a little bit more quiet with it. When Bergie walks in, don't even, like, mention it. See what happens. See if they approach you. What does Dan say with that information that's been put out there? What does Parvati say with that information? That's, like I said, they should be going, hey, man, like, I thought you had it. Like, what's going on? Right? And you can gauge that reaction as well. Like, was that too much acting? Or, like, there's a little bit more he could have done without putting such a big spotlight on himself, like immovable spotlight, which I'm really, really fascinated to see how it plays out with him being a traitor. And if it works out the way I'm kind of seeing it in my mind's eye, then Parvati is an absolute genius. Like the
Mm.
downfalls that can come Pete's way now if he becomes a traitor,
Oh,
and what
100%.
that's going to mean for the way he has to
He's
move
playing
is
too hard.
so crazy. Yeah,
Like, and listen,
absolutely.
if the guy wins, I'm gonna be like, phenomenal gameplay, Peter. Awesome, awesome to see you win this game. You're the Sam of Traitors, US
Yep.
season 2. You know, you're the mastermind of this season. Hopefully, without all of them, I won't spoil it for anybody at the end of what happened on Traitors Australia season 2, just in case people want to watch it. But it'll be interesting to see how it's going to turn out because Peter's now made such a big deal out of the fact that he's got to be murdered next, right? Everybody's like, he's like,
Yeah.
I'm way too obvious now. They're going to have to take me out of the game. So what happens if he's not taken out now because he's accepted the Traitors' invitation? It's the most obvious thing under the sun. Well, if they haven't taken him out,
Exactly right.
they've probably recruited him, and Parvati could use that to her advantage. Phaedra could use that to her advantage in the future to take out Peter. So I feel like Peter, because he's been playing the game so hard, if we've learned one thing about Traitors, is that if you're a faithful and you play the game too hard and you become the leader of the faithfuls, you're doomed. It's very difficult to be the leader of the faithfuls and get to the end game because you're either going to be someone that no one's ever going to banish because they all believe you're a faithful, so you're no use to the traitors. They're going to have to vote you out. Or B, you're going to be someone that they're going to try and recruit so that they can lead everybody astray. So I do feel like he's cornered himself a little bit here. So I'm fascinated to see what is going to happen. AR saying also if he backs off Parvati, Bergie will smell a rat. Yeah, Bergie seems to be pretty glued on as well. Danny says if Peter accepts, he is allowed to still keep targeting. Yeah, he is allowed to still keep targeting Parvati. And that would be the smart thing to do. That would be the because then he's like continuing to build that resume. But if he takes 2 traitors out back to back without there being consequences of him being voted out, clearly he must be a traitor.
With no murder.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Like he's still there. Like,
and then it starts becoming, not only is it how is he still there, but then it becomes how did he know so well? Like he was so confident that Dan was the traitor. It's like he knew somehow. You know what I mean? Like that adds. That's just another layer on top of the why aren't you murdered yet? Like there's multiple things that keeps adding onto it. And then if he's not as adamant in the Parvati chase, why isn't he? Like Parvati's, if he accepts, and he has to accept, there's no choice. You always become a traitor. Like you have to, because that's otherwise the only way out of it from here. He can still get out of it. Yeah. I think he can still get out of it, mainly because a lot of the people around him are potentially dumb. Like I feel like if they can,
but
if they can no,
not all of them.
John,
do you know why?
John and Kevin, John and Kevin are.
Yeah, John and Kevin definitely. Bergie seems pretty glued on, and then the other person, Trishelle. Trishelle is the only one that made the connection that if Dan was firing shots at Phaedra, he was desperate. Clearly, Phaedra has to be a traitor. She's the only one who's made that connection to date. So Phaedra is not completely out of the woods in regards to this. Dan may still have, he may have had his bow out there, and he probably hit her with a poisoned arrow that could still slow kill her in this game. Basically,
the poison chalice.
The poison chalice. Yeah, she's not completely clear. Yeah. Lexa with the big take here saying, I think Sandra is the real leader of the Faithfuls, but I think she's playing a damn good under the radar game, especially poking fun at Peter's alliance, Faithful of the Faithfuls. The only thing that's missing from Sandra at the moment in my mind is the fact that she hasn't said, as long as it ain't me, anybody but me in this game at this point, because that is Sandra's go-to strategy when it comes to winning these types of reality TV shows. Lexa saying, I think Sandra and CT have a lot of power in the Faithfuls because I think Parvati wants to keep Sandra around since they can talk and seem to have buried the hatchet, and Phaedra has a crush on CT. I thought Phaedra had a crush on Bergie. She called him Burgalicious.
I think everyone had a crush on CT.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say everybody has a crush on Bergie.
No one has a crush on Bergie.
Mucky does. Lexa saying, if any Faithfuls are in game, it's got to be Sandra and CT. I actually think Trishelle has got a shot. Like my mind keeps going back to Trishelle and CT having that conversation. about burying the hatchet between the two of them, looking out for each other and letting each other know if any of them are going to be in danger. Like, I could see a CT and Trishelle make it to the end in this game, to be honest. So that's something that definitely still stands out.
Yeah, I agree with that. She's looking in a pretty good position at the moment. Not considered a faithful at all. The only, obviously, in a game like the Traitors, the biggest thing is that you can never, unless you get shield after shield after shield, you can really never do anything about getting unalived, murdered. Like, there's no control over it. There's nothing you can do, especially now that she's considered such clear faithful of the faithfuls. Like, she's up for like elimination at any point.
Danny says, yes, Sandra and CT for the win. Also says, true, Trishelle caught that implication by Dan that Path and Phaedra are the actual traitors. Smart. Mucky saying, don't get me started on the poison chalices. That one still stings for Mucky, taking out his beloved Ekin Sue. Lexa saying she likes both of them. Let's talk about Kevin from Bling Empire, since Kahuna mentioned him, is like a survivor goat, not great as the full time to be dragged to the end as the thing of the traitors. Everyone hates him. I like Kevin. I like I feel like every season of Traitors needs to have the one person that is the worst reads. Like, even going into the round table, he was still defending Dan. He was like, nah, man, Dan's done nothing wrong. Like, it can't be Dan. And somewhere along the way, they convinced them to vote with them. But he was still not onto Dan's trail after it was so obvious with Bergie not going out of the game.
Yeah. Poor Kevin. But he's in an alliance. He's in the power alliance at the moment, the faithful of the faithful. So, like,
yeah, he's in a good spot. Lovable Nikki says Phaedra does not have a crush on Bergie. So, Lovable Nikki speaking up for Phaedra in this situation. I don't know. She said her burgerlicious. Danny says Trishelle and Peter are definitely playing the best right now. We'll see what the twist does for Peter getting recruited. Phaedra always says how tall and handsome CT is, and she has said several times Bananas was too. She wants to keep the handsome men around. Who can blame her? Yeah. Mucky also said that's why Chris will be casted in the next season. What are you talking about? Chris always likes the ops. Hey, I like variety. Variety is the spice of life. You can't just have everybody be terrible at a game, such as Traitors like Mucky. You need the good players. You need the bad players like a Mucky. You need a little bit of everything on a season, Kahuna. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's why we have a Kevin, and that's why we have a Bergie, and then on the other end of the spectrum, or a Mucky in that pool of players. And then at the other end, you've got,
this is the problem with Mucky being in the live instead of on the podcast. We can trash talk Mucky at this point. No, Mucky's a big boy. He knows. Why am I dragging Mucky? Listen, Lovable Nikki, Mucky started it, you know? He started it with me, like Dan started it with Phaedra, and I finished it. Okay, let's leave it at that. What did you think of the mission? Did you like the mission on this episode, Kahuna? They had the big catapult that they had to get all these different pieces.
Oh, yeah. Of course. And you have to get the ammo for the shield, and whether you run off and get ammo and take the... Yeah, look, it was okay. Like, I feel like it was probably the most physical. Like, they had to... Like, it looked like they were really struggling to get it up there. But then I went, hang on a sec. They've got, like, a really short time limit. It can't be that hard. Like, if it's... I'm like, when they were going, I was like, oh, there's 10 minutes left. Like, if it's not... Like, they've only been going for another 10 minutes. It's not like, you know, the challenge finale or something. But it looked hard. It was brutal. CTs doing CT things. Yeah, absolutely. Much more than they may be used to anyway, like having to walk up the mountain. But it was certainly a lot of fun. Catapults, as soon as you involve something with a catapult, like, that's fun. But the shield, the way it ended up being with the shield immunity, like, how were they even doing that? Were they aiming it? Like, it's still the giant catapult.
Well, that's what I was gonna bring this up and say, how crazy is it, like, that winning $20,000 came down to one person having one shot at this target, and it so happened to be John. like, because catapults was last used when John was a young boy, so they needed to get someone from that era to come out there and actually shoot this catapult. He had the experience, and he happened to nail it in one hit as well. To me, it's just insanity. This whole challenge was insanity when they finally got up there and they had one shot to do it, and John ends up pulling it out, being the, like, everybody keeps talking about CT. In the meantime, I'm like, CT who? We've got this John challenge beast on this season that, you know, runs faster than anyone else, knows how to shoot a catapult, is a great trader hunter. Clearly, John's the guy to watch out for this season, Kuna. People are underestimating him.
And by the way, like, just to give a little bit more credit to John, the way he delivers his roundtable like verdicts, like with all the politician pomp and circumstance and bullshit, just to give one like word, like he really loaded up, and he's like, Dan took a while there. Dan loaded up his thing. I want my time, and he like if he can deliver it like that every time, I'm all in. Like, I'm like, yeah, go for it,
John, for the win. Like, John's my guy now. Lovable Nicky saying, simmer down about CT, Chris. Listen, CT gets a lot of love, but John,
CT gets plenty. Don't worry, he's
he
fine.
gets plenty. He's going to be okay. John needs our support this season, I feel like. Daddy says, we love you, Mucky. Don't tell Mucky that. His head's going to grow. You know, he's already got a big head. Like, it's going to even get bigger when you say things like that, Danny. Lexa says, if they can get Peter, who do you guys think will be murdered or banished next? Let's assume Bergie somehow is safe. Also, like, say, Bergie gets the shield. That's a good question. Who will they take out next, Mucky, at this point in the game? I mean, Kahuna. Actually, no. Well, firstly, they're not anyone in the next one because they've offered to turn someone into a traitor. But then after that, they kind of have to get Peter, and then Peter's going to have his own takes. But you have to take a number out from Peter's side. You can't let his side just get the numbers and dictate the pace of the game. So that would be John, Kevin, which John and Kevin you keep because they're both pretty oblivious. Trishelle might be in danger. Trishelle,
Bergie. Yeah, if Bergie's not available, Trishelle's next up.
Yeah. Oh, man, that hurts. I want Trishelle to do well. But yeah, I feel like Trishelle or Bergie would probably be the two. Lex also said, this was my favorite mission next to the bird calling. This one was so fun, but Cherie winning the shield was very anti-climatic since she was not on the block. Yes, and after everybody was gunning thing. Like, I kind of sometimes forget Cherie's on the show. Like, we never hear from her. Yeah. She's just there. It must suck for people who are like real Housewives fans that see her on the show and she doesn't get any content. Like, I don't know anything about her.
Purple Cherie.
Danny says, I love the bird calling one for them all running around the castle repeating the bird sounds. Alan kept cracking up. That was good. Lexa saying, can we talk about the breakdown of both alliances of faithfuls on each side? It's 5 faithfuls of faithfuls in Peter's alliance and 5 of them in the Gamer alliance, right? Which is the stronger team. Well, me personally, I'm always going to lean towards the Gamer side. The only problem is that the Gamer side has a traitor in there, which is Parvati. But I feel like if Sandra, it sounds like Sandra is suspecting her because Sandra even said in this episode that we're onto Parvati in the game. But I feel like Sandra's not taking a direct shot at Parvati because she probably thinks that Parvati, as long as she can make Parvati believe that she doesn't suspect Parvati, she'll keep her around. And if she gets to the final, because the real gameplay, the meta gameplay, in my opinion, Kuna, is if you know who one of the traitors are and you know that they're an ally of yours, remain faithful to them, pun intended. Go to the end and vote them out so you take the money. It's the meta gameplay. And I feel like Sandra might be playing that kind of game with Parvati at the moment.
Yeah, hide in the shadow. Like, like, know who they are, but don't, like, you got to keep, because the power, again, like I say this every episode, but the whole game was designed to show and illustrate how powerful it is to have information over those who don't, right? So if you know who the traitor is and they don't know that you know, that's now information that the faithful have, and the one tiny, like, very rare advantage they actually have over the traitors. So you got to, if you get rid of that, and if you know they're a traitor, they're in your alliance, and you can keep in that wing of safety by taking them out, you now open yourself up to recruitments, which you have no idea about again, and you're starting from scratch. At least you've got them on your board, you're tracking them, and you can keep your eye on them the whole way through, and then figure out other ones and see where you are. But if you've got one that you know and you're close to them that they're not going to murder you, then you got to keep them.
I agree. I totally agree. I think that is the right way to play it. Lex is saying the Gamer Alliance is Sandra, CT, Kate, John? Gamer Alliance? John is in the other alliance. No. So it's Sandra, CT, Kate, and Parvati. I would say would be the Gamer Alliance. Where do MJ and Cherie fall? I think they're in the middle. MJ and Cherie. I think MJ and Cherie is in their own category with Phaedra as the Housewife Alliance. Like, I don't think they're a part of the Gamer Alliance or the Faithful Alliance, if that makes sense. The Faithfuls Alliance is Peter, Bergie, Kevin, Trishelle, and John. John is part of the Faithful Alliance as well. Blood Money's asking, do you guys see John go to the end?
Only as a goat type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not because he got there on his own power and figured it out and is in control.
Yeah. No problem, Slicks. It does get confusing sometimes, but John's been hanging out with Kevin and Pete and Bergie and also with Trishelle a lot. But Trishelle is an interesting one. Like, is she really with the Faithful Alliance or is she kind of with the Gamer Alliance? Because she's also got loyalty to CT. That dynamic hasn't been made clear enough for us as of yet. Like, it's interesting. One of the other big things, like logistically, that Janelle spoke about when Dan interviewed her on his podcast was how much less time they have to strategize. Because it's unlike Big Brother, they don't actually live with them the whole time. They get very small blocks during the day that they're allowed to do strategy talk. And then they're told, no, you're now on mission. You can't talk about it. So she said there was a lot less time to build strategy. But they probably also do it to kind of keep hiding the Traitors' identity for a little bit longer so people can't compare notes as much. So she said there was limitations compared to a show like Big Brother, which I think people don't always think about logistically.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Because I know that in Australian Survivor, they don't necessarily sleep at the hotel. They go somewhere else afterwards. I don't know if it's the same in the US. I don't know if they actually sleep in that castle or not, or if they go to a hotel, for instance. So, yeah, so logistically, it's interesting. Blood Money says Peter needs to be recruited to be traitor because he can be double agent for the Faithfuls of the Faithful Alliance. We spoke about it a little bit earlier, Blood Money, what we think is going to happen with Peter. I think Parvati will set him up for failure in that one. So it'll be interesting to see if he does accept it, what's going to happen there, because he was so adamant about him being taken out that now if he's not taken out, that is suspicious.
It's really good for Parvati because, first of all, if he does fully buy in, right?
Yeah.
And and actually runs defense for them and gets the scent off Parvati a little bit with his crew and starts putting it somewhere else, then she's got someone that's going to work for him. If not, and she can turn on Pete, offer him up as a traitor somehow and cast this, because like we said, if it's like, why aren't you murdered? How did you know so confidently? And then it turns out he does reveal himself as a traitor, then Parvati again is yeah. And then it's like, no, see, that's why he targeted me the entire time. He was a traitor the whole way through. Like,
he had like one actual traitor that he had pinned, and then he was pinning it on me as well as someone that was innocent. But I am impressed with Parvati. Parvati's playing this game well. She's giving us glimpses of what made her a great Survivor player back in the day. And I'm seeing a little bit of that Black Widow energy coming back as Peter is like gunning for her. And she is ready to devour Peter at this stage. Like, her conversation on the Traitor Tower with Phaedra about what if we took the most loyal of faithfuls and turned him into a traitor and then watch him all of his friends take on all his that was such a golden Parvati line. And hats off to Phaedra. Like, she, for me, because I've never watched Housewives, is the find of the season. Like, I'm really loving her character. I want to see her now play on more game shows in the future, like take her to Big Brother. I don't think she would do Survivor, but, get her on The Amazing Race with someone. Like, I just want Phaedra on my TV. I'm not watching Housewives. I'm sorry, Phaedra. As much as I love you, I can't bring myself to watch that show. But if you play in another competitive reality TV show, I'm all there for it because she is giving us everything at the moment.
I'm loving Phaedra. By the way, Dan's Dan's like ammo, not great,
Yeah.
but he went full guns blazing at Phaedra, and she
Yes.
handled it like a boss. Like she
She just
sat
sat
there.
there.
I think if I have to think, I think Dan's theory was this isn't great. I don't have a lot here. There's not a lot
No.
that I'm working with. But if I throw something at Phaedra, she's gonna panic, and in the moment, something will come out of this, right? I'm thinking that's what the idea was. But Phaedra was cool. She was like, "What? No, that doesn't make sense," and just rebutted everything that he
Mm.
threw at her. It's like, "No, that's silly." Calm the whole way through, and it really did make Dan like it made it look sillier, but in
Yeah.
comparison to her reaction, like you know what I mean? Just be like, "No, like
100%.
that's dumb." Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really well done.
And you've got to give Dan credit that he played everything right up until that point. He didn't give a name until they got to the round table, which meant that there was no way for Phaedra to know that the heat was coming her way. No one could have gone to her to say, be prepared for this. So he played that correctly. And like you said, he kind of expected her to fold over like someone that isn't experienced in playing a competitive reality TV show, a game show. But her experience of being a lawyer, of having accomplished a lot in life, and like you said, just having that poise about herself,
Yeah.
she ate it all up and she threw it right back. And I do think that I'm not taking anything away from Phaedra because she handled it as best as she could. But I'm just putting it out there for all the fans that are like, see, this is why Dan's not great and all this kind of stuff. It's rubbish. He went in with a massive target into this season. So people were onto him, not just this episode. They've been onto him for a while. So I feel like there was, like you just said, he had to throw a Hail Mary and try something. So I applaud the
He
fact
threw
that
it
he
the wrong way,
attempted it.
though.
I
I do
agree. He
too, but
should have
he should
thrown
have
it
thrown it
Parvati.
Parvati's way. Yeah.
100%.
Much
There's some loyalty there.
easier sell. Yeah.
There's some loyalty there that I
Yeah.
still don't fully understand. I feel like between you and me, I feel like Parvati and Dan had a pre-game alliance going into this. I just have this feeling everything to me shouts pre-game. They probably knew some of the people that were going to be playing the show. He had mutual respect with her and Sandra due to the fact that they're some of the best of Survivor. They're both CBS. He's one of the best of Big Brother. There was something going on there to me that screams pre-game between the two of them. And Big Brother players are known for doing pre-game alliances as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's
That
why
makes
he
a lot of
didn't shoot
sense.
at her. And even when she was shooting at him, she did so very reserved in her response to him. She didn't go all out against him.
Yeah.
I feel like a
No, all
lot of
she
this
said
would get
was, "I've
explained.
trusted Dan the whole way, and maybe I'm wrong."
Exactly. And Peter's like, don't let that fool you. Don't let that fool you. Okay. Like she is a traitor. Let's see what people are saying. Danny says, do you think Dan would have done any better as a faithful? I do think he would have done better. I think he wouldn't have had the pressure on him to be like Dan came into this playing a very old school game. Like he himself admitted, he hasn't played any of these games for like 10 years. Game shows have moved on. The level of the competitors that are playing these games now are a lot smarter compared to what they were 10 years ago. They consume a lot more of this type of content. Plus, he went in against a very experienced group of players here as well that have all come from other shows, you know? So I do think he was rusty coming into this game. I don't know if Dan would necessarily do something else in the future, but man, like if there's ever a Traitors All-Star season, I hope Dan gets the call back because one thing you can't like, I don't get like why people are so against Dan. Like, can we at least admit he was great TV this season? Like, you know, even seeing him scramble, even seeing him like firing shots on his way out was better than him being wallpaper out there.
100%. Like, I didn't like the shot. I didn't like the ammo that he used in the shot, but the way he took the shot, the delivery, the commanding the room and laying out his argument and all, it was all bullshit argument, but I appreciated the craftsman, like the way he delivered it. You know what I mean? I could see the charisma. I can see how people would fall into that little bit more juice to actually work with than complete nothing out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, his strategy was wrong, I think. But Dan is a very smart player. Like if you gave him another shot at Traitors to come back and play in an All-Star season, he would change up his approach. Like you'd see a different game plan from him. It'd be hilarious if he's a traitor again. But that's why they need to do like a Traitors All-Stars at some point. I'm just fascinated to see, because if you've got previous traders that you now don't know if they're a traitor or they're a faithful, I think it would make for a very
Yeah,
a
I
very
agree.
interesting game. Lovable Nicky saying Chris did not play Dan did not play everything correctly until the round table. Dan came out of nowhere with a name no one expected. Dan played as a traitor all season. I agree that, like we kind of said, who he fired at, definitely not the right person. And I think I personally will call it out. I think there was some pre-game alliance going on. I could be wrong about that. Dan has admitted on his own show that he wanted to play with Parvati until the end. He wanted to stay loyal to her. To me, that's strange, but that's the gameplay he wanted to play. I do think the right move would have been not to let someone prepare themselves for the fire that you would bring. I just don't think the ammunition he was shooting blanks. I just don't think that was effective. You can make a counter argument and say he should have talked to people and given them a heads up, but I think because of who he was firing against, he was hoping he could catch Phaedra off guard and get her to slip up, like you said, Kahuna, and that failed. Clearly failed on the day. The only people who knew someone who was cast was Lhasa and Marcus. Okay. Beforehand, I mean, no one knew who was on the cast before the vehicles. Come on, Lovable Nicky. We've been in the game for a long time when it comes to reality TV shows. And the reason I say this is because I've also listened to another podcast with a certain Miss Sharon Tarp where they actually had my personal. So a lot of people say Dan's the best player of all time in Big Brother. I actually think it's Dr. Will personally. Dr. Will is well and truly retired. Dan sort of modeled his game on Dr. Will quite a bit when he came in to play the game. Dr. Will was the original sort of pioneer of Big Brother. And he had a conversation with Sharon Tarp where they spoke about who got what calls for certain shows, maybe Traitors. And a lot of people were phoning Dr. Will to ask him if he was going to be on this season prior to the season starting. So maybe they weren't 100%, but people were calling each other and they were like, hey, you may have gotten a call. Are you on this season? I don't believe that call didn't go out. I think certain people knew beforehand. Maybe not everybody, but I think game players would have done that. And Big Brother players are notorious for doing this as well. You know this, Lovable Nicky. Agree, Dan is a legend.
No idea.
Surprised he made it as long as he did. Sorry?
CT and Bananas had no idea. Like, they were surprised by getting out of the cars together, like, at the castle.
That's true. He seemed somewhat shocked, but also not, because they're like, I can't shake Bananas wherever I go. Lovable Nicky says, not again, Dan. He was kind of wallpaper. He was saying nothing to the players. I don't think he's wallpaper because he was a traitor and getting confessionals. I think that in the confessionals, he let us in on what he was thinking at all times, which was entertaining, and at least he had some strategy behind it. I think in the house, he probably would have been pretty low key. Maybe some players did find him boring because he wasn't really giving much, but I think to the camera, at least, he was good. I just don't have a dislike for Dan. I never will. And no one's going to be able to change my opinion about that. I'm very biased when it comes to it. But I understand he may not be everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. It's 100% fine. Kuna, where did you sit on Dan? Like you can break it. I guess you only know him from this show. But do you agree that he just brought nothing to this season? And if there was an All-Stars call, he shouldn't even get the call. You don't have the bias I do.
No, I think he did come into the game with a very big disadvantage, like you said. He's playing behind the eight ball. It's hard from that position, but that's good to be because you're the trader. You need to have some sort of disadvantage. He clearly is a smart guy. I can see the building blocks of a player. I just think like this, I don't think he played that well as a trader, but I can see the way his mind works. I can see the way he talks in confessionals. I can see all that stuff that he would be a very compelling player. I think that Traitors is tough, man. Like it's so random.
That's why I don't want to play it.
People decide things. Yeah. Like you can't game it out as hard or because of the unpredictability of it. You know what I mean? So you're kind of at the mercy of randomness a little bit. So it's hard for someone who is a very strategic game player to account for a lot of that randomness of, without the things to go off of there. Even though he's got all the information, when I talk about randomness from a trader's perspective, it's how the faithful react to having no information. They go off of that person winked, that person looked funny, that like, and you can fall into that trap of you're too quiet. Like, you're
Yeah.
too quiet, you're too loud, you're too anything. They'll pick anything.
That's
And
why I
Dan was
don't
either
like
too
Traitors.
quiet. Yeah. It's tough. It is tough.
It's an interesting show
He
to
definitely had
watch,
the advantage. Yeah.
but I don't. I
Mm.
think it'd be go and become a legend on a show that most of these shows you don't have control over, but where you have at least got some level of control over, and you can try and game it to the end, like you said. Go become a legend on that show, and then go play Traitors when there's nothing to lose. Like with Dan, for
Like
instance,
Dan.
he's a legend. Doesn't matter what he did on this show. He's a legend in
Yeah.
Big Brother. That's never going to change. You know what I mean? So then you can take the risk. You can take a calculated risk and go play a show such as this that can be a gamble. There's definitely strategy that comes into this game, but it's like you said, what strategy is going to apply what season? You don't know. You're saying too much. You're saying too little. You clear your throat at the wrong time. You know, I mean, there's the strangest things. John nearly got voted out for that in the first episode. You know, it's hard. It's a hard game.
So I don't hold it as against him. Like, I do think he's obviously good at unconventional. He's got good. I think, you know, my showing of Dan is, yeah, I like him. He's been good. He's good TV. I think he could have
Yeah.
done better. I don't think his moves were perfect, but
No.
from what I see of him as a character, I'm in.
Yeah. No, I definitely enjoyed it. So I think we spoke about a little bit about the recruitment. We spoke about Phaedra ultimately, you know, coming out on top. Do you think that Phaedra can take this to the end now? Are you thinking Phaedra's got the inside lane here, or do you see potential trouble? Do you think that we see both Parvati or Phaedra at the end, or do you think only one of them will potentially make it? Because Parvati's also tried to take a shot at Phaedra before, but kind of have had to pull back from that.
Yeah, and caught red-handed as well. Phaedra said, "Don't do that." Like,
yeah,
and then now Dan's taken a bigger shot that, like, Parvati took a little bit, and Phaedra said,
and took a direct shot.
No," and then he's gone. So Phaedra's looking really good, right? And considering that if they recruit Pete accepts, which we all assume he's going to, I like the line that Phaedra said to Parvati, where Parvati sort of said, "You've had a tough time today as well. You were dealing with the accusation from Dan. That wasn't easy. Do you want to go through it together?" And she goes, "Look, I've had a tough time, but you're still screwed.
You're in
Maybe
the
in the
ICU.
waiting. You're in the ICU. I'm in the lobby. So, like, and if Pete comes in as well, I think automatically off the jump, he's going to be in a worse position than Phaedra as well. So she's going to be double insulated, even more so, with a pick from Parvati that she's using to insulate herself, which will insulate Phaedra even further. The only crinkle to that is how hard Trishelle holds on to that little seed. Did Dan drop something with Phaedra there? And if she can use that to convince others, and
who does she talk to? Where does she go with that information?
Yeah. Is it Pete or CT? That's going to be interesting.
Lexa says 100% I think Phaedra can win. Trishelle is the only one who suspects her, but Parvati has so much heat. Who do you guys think Peter as a traitor would want to go to the end with between Parvati and Phaedra? Ooh, I feel like Pete's got it out for Parvati. Like, he wants Parvati's head on a spike. Like, and he's gonna know that Parvati's the one that pushed for him to become a traitor as well, probably. Like, I just don't see Pete and Parvati both in the end. Like, I see Pete and Phaedra there more than Parvati, or Parvati taking out Pete and then Parvati and Phaedra being at the end. Those are but in both situations,
between
Phaedra
Pete and Parvati, Phaedra will team up with one of the two and go against the other. It's either going to be Parvati. By the way, the fact that they recruited another freaking P, and now we've got Parvati, Pete, and Phaedra, like, that makes it very difficult in that tower. But if Parvati and Phaedra have, like, we're OG traders from the start, kind of. Oh no, she wasn't. She was recruited as well. So they might say we've been in a bit longer. Let's not let Pete come in here and take us out, or they might sort of team up. Pete and Phaedra can go, like, I've been here with Parvati longer, and I want to get rid of her. It's me and you, Pete, all the way. So there's both ways that it can kind of go, and I think Parvati can do the same thing to Pete. So it's interesting sort of ramifications either way. I think they will turn on each other. I don't think they're going to be strong all the way to the end, and I think Phaedra will reap the benefits of the little war between Pete and Parvati.
Interesting. Yeah. So a couple of things here coming up. I've got Jesse saying none of the traders will win, I think. Big call there. So saying a faithful will take season 2 out. And if that is true, I'm wondering who that faithful will be. Could be Sandra. Could be Trishelle if she gets to the end. She's kind of on to Phaedra. I think Sandra's kind of on to Parvati. So both of those get to the end. They possibly have some people they can call out in a final situation. Alexa saying, do you guys think... Sorry?
How are you feeling about CT in the game?
Listen. Love Nikki's going to hate me on this one. She calls my man Dan Wallpaper. Call a spade a spade. Confessionals boring. What has CT done, really, that's been entertaining this season? Let me just put it out there, Kuna. Has he been more entertaining than Dan this season?
Well, no, he hasn't had the chance. He's not a traitor. Like, there you go. She's jumping in.
I'm going to have the challenge coming for me. I knew Lovell Nicky wasn't going to take that one lightly. I love CT, by the way, but your boy's been low-key this season.
When it comes to the challenge, when it comes to the challenge, you've got Bananas, you've got Jordan, you've got Cara Maria, you've got CT. Chris is going to be on Josh, Bessie, Casey. Like he's big brother all the way. Dan.
Oh, Dan. Listen, I'm having some fun. I'm having some fun. CT is going to go far. He's a challenge asset. I'm having fun with everybody out there. I love CT, but I'm just trying to show that from one season to the other season, just because you're great at one show doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be that great or entertaining on a different show. You know?
Yeah.
CT's playing it right. He's playing the Dan strategy, being low key, but it's working for him. It didn't work for Dan at all. Being the traitor,
I think he's building relation. I think everyone likes him.
I think everybody likes him as well.
Yeah, he's gonna be. He's not. I don't think he's going to be banished anytime soon, unless the fallout from Pete's trap works. But Pete kind of covered him by saying, "I laid the trap, and there's no chance." Like from the person who had the suspicion to then get their endorsement, I think adds more for CT, and he can lay low a little bit and take some shots. I want to know what he's thinking as far as nailing some traders, because he's got to be suspicious of Parvati now as well.
He's got to be. Blood Money says, according to Sharon Tarp, Twitter, the Traitors US Cast Season 2 will be in New York City this week for press. The reunion films in March, and I hear it may be taping in LA. Wires got crossed there, but there you go. True. Now, one thing that happened this week, I don't know if you were aware of this, but I took note of this because, you know, I'm someone that always wants to know what the news is out there when some of my favorite players suddenly makes an appearance after maybe, say, almost 4 years of not hearing about this player. And someone came out of hiding this week and suddenly opened up his Instagram account again. Retiring in 2024. Right. Got to keep busy while making that dollars. Find me on YouTube and X at Tony Vlachos 73. Are we thinking that Tony maybe got the call for Traitors Season 3? Or is this an international Survivor crossover? What do you think is happening here, Kuna? I got really excited when I saw this.
I don't know. Like, you made a big leap there. I saw you post that. I was like, okay, he hasn't actually, like, he's just started social media again.
He doesn't do social media unless he's on a show. He always only opens his account when he's on a show. He never does social media if he's not on a season because he's not that kind of person. He doesn't like social media. So this is a big move for him to open his social back up.
He's trying to make some money. He said he wants to retire in 24.
There we go. So for those who don't know, here Jesse goes, he got the Traitors 3 invite. Blood Money saying Tony Vlachos is the winner of Kagian and the winner of Winners at War. So for those who don't know, he is the GOAT. He beat all of the previous winners in a season full of champions. Lovell Nicky loving your skepticism. They're saying, I hate Tony on Silver, but I think he might be fun on Traitors. I think he would be more fun without Sarah. I'm a big Tony fan. Like Tony, love Tony. Yeah. Like the fact that he won the game twice, to me, it's insane. So I'm winning for the rest of my life. I don't care if none of my favorites ever win a reality TV show again, just by the fact that he's won twice and I get to call him the GOAT. That's it for me. I'm happy with that. I think he'll be entertaining on Traitors. And He's a
I
cop.
think Traitors is a good fit. Like, it'll be the best one for him, and I could see it happening for sure.
Tyson would be fun. Boston Rob or Yule. Like, listen, get them all in there.
Well, Boston Rob
all
was
about
cast this season originally, remember? That was the rumors. Like, we heard he was on it and then got changed at the end.
Yeah, he's on Deal or No Deal Island instead. Huge chance Sandra won this season, hoping Tony will do well. Yeah, true. That is like Sandra's the one who.
Imagine if Sari wins, Sandra wins,
and then
like,
Tony.
That's not fair. That means Survivor players shouldn't be on this game. They're dominant,
I love
man.
that.
Like,
I love that Sandra's the one who also like, because I saw it on Sandra's feed, not on anybody else's, and Sandra on her Instagram said the king has returned to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Like, why? She's just been on Traitors. Potentially did really well.
Hyping him up as well.
She's hyping him up. I'm loving it, and
I'm buying into your conspiracy theories here.
And
man.
now let's put it out there. The season hasn't started filming yet. Does Tony suddenly start getting the pre-game alliance calls coming into him now that he's opened up his account? Is this Tony pre-gaming by opening up, and now people know that he's going to be on there? Putting it out there.
By the way, speaking of Sandra, I don't know if it was one of those things that I missed when I'm like looking at my phone or zoning out. But what happened to her head? Did we miss that?
Yeah, they never showed
a giant.
It. Yeah.
Okay, good. I was like,
she spoke about it on her Instagram. Someone maybe in the live would know what happened, but she heard it in one of the missions, I believe. But I don't think they showed it on the TV. Lex is saying, Chris, that's how I feel about Sandra. She's my favorite player of all time. Well, she's the other GOAT. It's King and Queen, King Tony and Queen Sandra of Survivor. Like, how can you not like the King and Queen? You know, Boston Rob is on Deal or No Deal Island. Sandra's edit is so good. Sandra's edit is literally perfect so far. She has not one single bad thing. And I also want to say, if Sandra does win Kahuna, who made that call? Who made that call when we did our cast assessment about who's going to win the season? I'm just going to say it, putting it out there. And it was before the season filmed.
Again, I don't know how anyone can let Sandra get to the end of any game she ever plays ever again. Like Scrabble, Uno, or whatever. Just don't let Sandra get near the end because she wins these things.
It's unfair if she's in the game. Knock on wood. Jesse saying Dina Katz won in charge of casting said that she wanted Boston Rob so bad. Yeah, Boston Rob would be golden in a show like this.
Boston Rob would automatically be one of a traitor. Like, he would be bananas. He would either be a traitor or thought to be a traitor and gone immediately.
Yeah. Lovable Nicky saying you like the live, so please like the live. Yes, please, everybody like the live. Blood Money saying bring King George and Queen Hailey for Traitors US Season 3. Yeah, because Traitors Australia has been cancelled as far as I'm aware. So we're now going to have to hope that some of these players make it over to the US. But I do feel like, to be honest with you, we've had a lot of comments come in for Traitors Australia in the finale, and we won't spoil what happened. A lot of people are low on that season. And also, towards the end, I didn't enjoy it as much that season. It was a bit of a drag to get through. I think if you compare the two shows, like the US definitely has the superior version when it comes to Traitors. And now that they're taking all these celebrities.
I got 2 things for Australia. I will ride for Australia. You know that. I'm Australian all the way.
Yeah, I'm still working on the citizenship.
Adidas tracksuits, Roger Corsa. That's enough.
Yeah, listen, it's not.
Tell me they shouldn't have the tracksuits at least.
Yeah, they could
be doing these challenges in Adidas tracksuits.
This is not Squid Games, okay? They don't need to be in a suit to do it.
Yeah, I think maybe they thought it's too close to Squid Games.
Probably, yeah. Anyways, that is the end here of this live. I think we've spoken about everything from this episode. We will be back next week, hopefully with Mucky included, if he can get his tech sorted out. Consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the like button, putting the notification bell on. We will go live on Thursday evening over here in Melbourne, Sydney time at around the same time, 9 p.m. to talk about this week's action of Australian Survivor. No spoilers in the live, please. I haven't seen tonight's episode as of yet. I'm going to have to go watch that straight afterwards so that I'm prepared for that on Thursday. But I've liked the first 2 episodes this week and the first 3 episodes last week. We're off to a very, very solid start on Survivor. So if you're watching that, make sure to tune in. And then on the weekend, we're back at our normal time for the challenge content, obviously. And we're looking forward to having everybody on there as well. But for now, Have a good evening, everybody, and a good day, morning, wherever you are. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.